In the heart of one of the world's most secretive and repressive regimes, Yeongae Lee lived under a sky of silence, a land where freedom was a myth, truth was rewritten daily, and survival meant obedience. Born into the tightly controlled system of North Korea, she grew up believing that her country was the envy of the world, that its leader was divine, and that hardship was a noble sacrifice for the greater good. But over time, reality cracked through the propaganda, like light breaking through a prison wall. Yeongae was raised in a society built on fear. Schools taught children to worship the Kim dynasty. Families were assigned jobs, homes, and even marriages based on loyalty to the regime. Surveillance was constant. Neighbors spied on neighbors. One misstep, a wrong word, a questioning glance could lead to disappearance. Her early life was marked by scarcity. Food was rationed, electricity intermittent, and hope carefully monitored. Yet, like many North Koreans, Yeongae learned to endure. She married young, had 2 children, and tried to build a life within the rigid boundaries imposed by the state. Tragedy struck when her husband, suspected of disloyalty, was taken away to a political prison camp, a place where generations of families are imprisoned together, where forced labor, torture, and starvation are routine. His death left a void not only in her heart, but in the fragile stability of their family. Then came the moment that changed everything. Yeongae, desperate to provide for her children and seeking some glimpse of the outside world, began secretly listening to foreign radio broadcasts and exchanging goods with Chinese traders across the border. It was an act of quiet rebellion, and it nearly cost her everything. She was arrested for smuggling information from China, a crime considered treasonous in North Korea. During her imprisonment, she witnessed unspeakable horrors: beatings, public executions, women giving birth in chains. When she was finally released, she knew there was no future for her or her children inside the country. Winter had come hard and fast that year. The Tumen River, which formed part of the border between North Korea and China, had frozen solid. For Yeongae, it wasn't just a river, it was the line between slavery and freedom. One night, with nothing but the clothes on their backs and the courage in their hearts, Yeongae and her 2 children slipped away from their village. They moved silently through snow-covered fields, past watchtowers and patrols, toward the dark expanse of the river. They stepped onto the ice. Behind them lay a nation that had stolen their dignity, their safety, and their future. Ahead was the unknown, a world they had only heard about in whispers. Crossing the river felt like walking on glass. One false step, one creak of the ice, and they could fall into freezing water. But they made it barefoot, shivering, alive. China was not the promised land they had hoped for. As undocumented refugees, they were hunted. The Chinese government routinely captures and repatriates North Korean defectors, sending them back to certain punishment or worse. For years, Yeongae and her children lived in hiding. They moved constantly, staying in cramped apartments, sleeping in forests, surviving on kindness and luck. They met other defectors, people who had risked everything for freedom, only to find themselves trapped again in a different kind of limbo. There were moments of despair, moments when Yeongae questioned whether the journey had been worth it. But every time she looked at her children, tired, scared, but still breathing, she found strength to keep going. With the help of underground networks and international aid organizations, they eventually made contact with a group that could help them reach South Korea, where defectors are granted citizenship and protection. The final leg of their journey took them through dangerous routes, sometimes hidden in cargo trucks, sometimes led by brave smugglers. But after years on the run, they arrived in Seoul. South Korea was overwhelming: bright lights, fast cars, endless choices. After a lifetime of silence and control, The noise and freedom were almost too much to bear. Yeongae and her children underwent months of psychological and cultural adjustment. They learned new customs, new language, and new ways of thinking. It was difficult, but for the first time, they were safe. As she settled into her new life, Yeongae began speaking out. She shared her story with journalists, human rights groups, and governments. She spoke before the United Nations, addressed global conferences, and stood face to face with diplomats and activists who listened as she described the realities of life under Kim Jong-un's rule. She became a voice for the voiceless, for those still trapped behind the bamboo curtain, for those who had died trying to escape, and for those who had never known anything but oppression. Today, Yeongae Lee is more than a survivor. She is a symbol of resistance, resilience, and maternal love. Her advocacy work focuses on raising awareness about the plight of North Korean defectors, exposing the crimes against humanity committed by the regime, and pushing for stronger international support for those who manage to flee. She has helped fund underground networks that assist others in escaping. She supports defector communities in South Korea and beyond, and she continues to speak not just for herself, but for millions whose voices have been silenced. Freedom came at a great price. Yeongae lost her home, her family, and pieces of her identity along the way. But she gained something far more valuable: the ability to choose, to speak, and to fight for others still trapped. Her journey reminds us that freedom is not given, it is seized, protected, and defended. It reminds us that even in the darkest corners of the world, there are those who dare to dream of light. "I didn't escape because I hated my country," Yeongae once said. "I escaped because I loved my children enough to give them a future." And in doing so, she gave the world a story of courage, endurance, and the unbreakable will to live.